The hunters were heading back from the hunt in high spirits. They had managed to take down a bison, something that didn't happen every day. Some carried chunks of meat, others laughed, talking about how they had surrounded the animal. The mood was good. It was one of those days where everything seemed to go right. They took a shortcut through land they already knew. Nothing new, just another stretch before reaching their shelter. That's when it happened. One of them stepped forward first. His foot sank slightly. At first he laughed, thinking it was just mud. He tried to pull it back. It didn't move. He pulled harder. Nothing. The smile disappeared instantly. He called the others. Two of them rushed in, thinking it would be easy to help. One grabbed his arm, the other tried pulling him by the waist. But the moment they stepped closer, they got stuck too. The ground wasn't mud. It wasn't water. It was tar, and now three of them were trapped. They tried pulling with force, twisting their bodies, forcing their legs. But every movement only made it worse. The tar pulled them back, held them, clung to them. Their legs began sinking deeper, from the ankles, up to the middle of the shin. And it didn't stop. The rest of the group froze. No one stepped closer. Because now it was clear, this wasn't normal ground, and one wrong step would trap someone else too. At first, no one wanted to accept what was happening. It was instinct. When something traps you, the first reaction is to pull harder. And that's exactly what they did. One of the men twisted his body with all his strength, trying to free his leg in one motion. Another grabbed his arm and pulled hard, thinking he could drag him out. But it had the opposite effect. The tar didn't let go, it held tighter. The more they moved, the deeper they sank. It wasn't fast, but it was constant. Slowly, almost without noticing, the ground kept pulling them in. One of them tried to step forward as if he could just push through it. His foot sank even deeper. He lost his balance and fell sideways. His arm hit the tar and stuck instantly. Now it wasn't just his leg. Half his body was trapped. The group outside saw that and stepped back immediately. No one else got closer. The mistake was clear now. This wasn't something you could fix with strength. The three trapped men started breathing faster. It wasn't just effort anymore. Something else was setting in. Anxiety. That feeling that control was slipping away. One of them tried to stop moving. He stayed still for a few seconds. It seemed to help. His body didn't sink as much. But the problem was still there. He was stuck, and deeper than before. Another tried a different approach. He lifted his hand from where it was braced and tried to push himself up using only his body. It didn't work. The tar held him like part of the ground. Silence started to take over the group. No one spoke with that light tone from before. Now every word was short. Direct. Don't move. Stop. Easy. But saying it was easy. Staying still wasn't, because the longer they stayed there, the more they could feel the pull. It wasn't a sudden drop. It was worse. It was slow, and that made everything more tense. One of them forced again without thinking, pulled with everything he had, trying to free at least one leg. The result was immediate. He sank deeper. Now it was already past his knee. The group saw that and understood something no one wanted to say out loud. If they kept going like that, they weren't getting out. And the worst part wasn't being stuck. It was not knowing how to get out. After a few failed attempts, everyone stopped. Not because they had solved anything, but because it was clear that doing the same thing again would only make it worse. The three trapped men stayed still, breathing heavily, looking at each other, trying to stay calm. The tar had already passed the knees of two of them. The one who had fallen was worse off, with part of his arm and side stuck as well. The rest of the group formed a wider circle around them. No one stepped too close. The ground didn't feel safe anymore. Every step was tested before putting full weight on it. The atmosphere changed. Before there had been talking, laughter, the sound of men returning from a successful hunt. Now, silence. Just the wind moving low, the dry sound of plants brushing and the breathing of the ones stuck. One of them tried to say something, but stopped halfway. There was nothing to say. Another asked quietly, "Now what?" No one answered, because no one knew. The problem wasn't just pulling them out, it was doing it without getting more people stuck. One wrong step and someone else would be trapped too, and then everything would get worse. One of the men outside the tar tried to find firmer ground. He took a few steps to the side, slowly testing before committing his weight. In some spots it felt solid. In others, his foot sank slightly and he pulled back immediately. You couldn't trust it. The smell started to grow stronger, heavy, different from normal mud. It rose from the ground and lingered in the air. Some noticed it, but no one said anything. They already had enough to deal with. The three trapped men tried not to move. That was the only thing that didn't make it worse. But staying still had its own cost. Their bodies began to ache. Their legs, pressed and unsupported, needed constant effort just to stay balanced. The one who had fallen was worse off. His arm was stuck and couldn't support him properly. He tried to adjust slightly, but any movement made the tar pull harder. Time started to feel heavy. There was no visible countdown, but everyone could feel this couldn't last long. The sun was still up, but it had already begun to drop, and everyone there knew what that meant. When night came, the temperature would drop fast. And being stuck like that, unable to move, unable to get out, wasn't something anyone wanted to face.
Is anyone out here?
One of the men outside looked around again, trying to think of anything that could help. A rock? None. A log? Too far. Nothing around them seemed useful, and that made everything clearer. They weren't just stuck, they had no answer. The sun was no longer at its highest point. There was still light, but the change was clear now. Shadows were starting to stretch across the ground, growing longer, covering more space. And that was what finally made the group understand how serious the situation was. Until then, the concern had been getting out. Now, it was getting out fast. Because when night came, it wouldn't just be darkness. The cold would come with it. And out there, cold wasn't just uncomfortable. It was something the body couldn't handle for long without movement. The 3 trapped men were already tired. Staying still seemed safer, but it also took effort. Their legs stuck up to the knees, their bodies trying not to sink further, muscles constantly tense. There was no way to relax. One of them started to tremble slightly. It wasn't the cold yet. It was exhaustion beginning to show. The one who was deeper tried to adjust his upper body again, very slowly. Almost nothing. But even that made the tar pull him a little further down. He stopped immediately. "Don't move," someone said. But that wasn't new anymore. Everyone already knew. The problem was something else. Staying still didn't solve anything. It only stopped things from getting worse. And that wasn't enough. The group started looking farther around, trying to think of anything that could help. Some way to pull without getting close. Some kind of support from a distance. Anything that didn't involve stepping into that ground. But the terrain didn't help. It was uneven, filled with dark patches. Some looked solid, others didn't. No one wanted to test too much. One of the men walked a bit farther out, trying to find something useful. A large branch, maybe. Something long enough to reach without risk. He found nothing. He came back. Looked at the 3 trapped men. And said nothing. That was enough. The silence returned. Heavier this time. Different from before. Now it wasn't just a lack of conversation, it was a lack of answers. One of the trapped men asked, "How much light do we have left?" No one answered right away. One of them looked at the sky, judging quickly. Not much. It was direct. No attempt to soften it. There was no point pretending anymore. The wind passed stronger for a moment, lifting dry dust around them. The smell of the tar came back heavier, mixed now with the colder air beginning to settle in. The trapped men felt it first. They weren't moving, and that made the cold reach them faster. Their legs weren't responding the same way anymore, not because of the tar, but because the constant effort was catching up to them. One of them tried to shift his weight from one leg to the other. It didn't work. The tar pulled again. He stopped, took a breath, and stayed still. Now even small adjustments were becoming dangerous. The group saw that, and the tension rose again. There was no room for error. None, if anyone sank further. They might not even be able to hold themselves up anymore, and then getting out would be even harder. The sun dropped a little more. Now the difference in light was obvious. Time was passing, and fast. One of the men outside the tar started walking around again, searching for any possible solution. He would stop, look at the ground, test it with his foot, step back. Nothing seemed reliable. Nothing seemed to work. He stopped, looked at the others, and said quietly, "We need to get them out now." No one answered, because everyone already knew. The question wasn't if, it was how, and that part still had no answer. The 3 trapped men stayed silent. Their bodies heavy, their breathing slower now, not from calm but from exhaustion. Time was against them, and so far, nothing had changed that. After standing there for so long without getting anywhere, someone decided to try again. They couldn't just keep watching. One of the men grabbed a spear. It was the only thing long enough to reach without stepping into the tar. He moved carefully, stopping before the darker ground, tested it with his foot. It felt solid enough. Then he extended the spear toward one of the trapped men. "Grab it." The man reached out with difficulty. Slow movement, controlled. Any rush could make things worse. It took a few seconds, but he got it. For a moment, it looked like it might work. The man outside planted his feet, held the other end, and started pulling slowly. The trapped man pushed at the same time, trying to lift his body without twisting, without moving his legs too much. For a second, it worked. The body lifted slightly, not much. but enough to give hope. Keep going. Slow. He pulled again. The other pushed. The tar stretched, clung, resisted. Then something changed. The tip of the spear started to sink. It didn't break, but it gave in, slowly. Almost unnoticeable at first. Then more clearly. The ground there wasn't as solid as it looked. The man pulling noticed immediately. Tried to shift his weight back, adjust his footing, find better support. Too late. The spear sank a little more, not much, but enough to lose strength. The trapped man felt it right away. His body dropped again, back to where it was, maybe even deeper. He let out a low sound. Not pain, frustration. The other pulled the spear back quickly before it sank further, took 2 steps back, breathed, looked at the ground. Now it was clear, even the places that seemed safe but weren't reliable, they couldn't trust it. Another man tried something different. He grabbed 2 spears, planted one farther away and used the other as an extension, trying to create more distance between himself and the tar. It looked better, safer. He said everything carefully, extended it, called the trapped man. Come on, slow. The man tried again. Slow movement, arm reaching out. He grabbed it. The group watched closely. Now it seemed more promising, more stable. The man outside began to pull. More controlled this time. No rush. The trapped man tried to lift his body again. A little more this time, but the problem came back. Even with more distance, the tar still pulled. And the ground was still unstable. The second spear began to give in too, less than before, but enough to break the balance. The man outside lost his footing, stepped back fast. Let go, before he ended up stuck as well. The trapped man dropped again, heavier, more tired. Now there was no doubt. This wasn't just hard, it was complicated. Every failed attempt made them more exhausted and more trapped. The group fell silent for a few seconds. No one said anything, because that had been their best idea so far. And it didn't work. One of the trapped men took a breath and said, "If we keep doing this, we're going to sink." No one answered. But everyone knew he was right. The problem wasn't just getting out, it was getting out before things got worse. And at that moment, every attempt seemed to push them in the wrong direction. The sun dropped a little more. Time kept moving. And now, on top of everything else, there was something new. Fatigue, and every wrong move made everything harder. After the failed attempts, no one wanted to risk trying again right away. The group stood still for a while, each one thinking of a way out that didn't involve stepping into the tar. But nothing seemed to work. That's when a different sound appeared. At first low, almost lost in the wind, then clearer, something moving. It wasn't anyone from the group. The rhythm was different, heavier, slower. The ones outside the tar noticed first. One of them lifted his head and looked toward the sound. Another did the same. Within seconds, everyone was staring in the same direction, and no one said a word. They didn't need to. You could see it. Something large moving through the low vegetation. Not fast, not hidden, just coming straight toward them. An animal, big, heavy, and heading their way. The 3 trapped men noticed the shift before they saw it. One of them turned his head with effort, trying to understand what was happening. When he saw it, he stopped. Now the problem wasn't just the tar. If that animal got too close, everything could fall apart. An attack there with 3 men stuck would leave no chance to defend, and even the ones free didn't have a safe position to react. One of the men outside took a step back without thinking. Another moved his hand toward his weapon, didn't draw it, but was ready. The animal kept coming, no rush, no running. No sign of immediate attack. The distance closed until everyone could see it clearly. Strong body, controlled movement, the way it placed its paws on the ground. Like it was choosing exactly where to step. That caught their attention. It didn't walk straight in, didn't move toward the trapped men. It stopped, a few meters away, watching. The group froze. No one wanted to provoke it, no one wanted to draw attention. The silence returned. But now it was different. Before it was tension from the problem, now it was full attention. One of the trapped men whispered, "Don't let it get close." No one answered, because no one knew if that was the right move. The animal didn't show aggression, didn't advance, didn't retreat. It just stayed there, watching. The wind passed again, carrying the group's scent toward it. The animal lifted its head slightly, took in the air, and stayed still. One of the men outside made a small movement to the side, very slowly. The animal noticed immediately. It didn't move forward, but followed with its eyes. That was enough to make one thing clear. It was alert, every detail, every movement. The group understood quickly that any sudden action could change everything, so no one moved. They stayed there, Still, with 3 men stuck in tar and a large unknown animal just a few meters away, time kept moving, the sun dropping, the cold coming. And now, something new added to the situation. But unlike what it seemed, that wasn't just another problem. No one there was ready to deal with 2 problems at once. Until then, everything was clear. 3 men stuck in tar with no idea how to get out. Now, there was something else in the middle of it, and it wasn't small. The animal stayed still, not advancing, not backing away, just watching. And that made everything worse. Because if it were an attack, at least it would be direct, but like this, no one knew what to expect. One of the men outside tightened his grip on the spear. He didn't raise it, didn't make any sudden moves, but he was ready. Another slowly stepped back, trying to gain distance without drawing attention. The 3 trapped men became even more still. Before, the effort was to not sink. Now it was to not provoke. One of them was breathing faster, trying to control it, but failing. His body was already tired, stuck, and now facing something else right in front of him. "It's looking at us," someone whispered. And it was. The animal didn't look away for long. It watched one, then another, then the whole group, like it was trying to understand what was happening. The wind passed again. Dry dust lifted slightly. The smell of tar was still strong. And even then, the animal didn't leave. That was what stood out the most. Any other animal would have gone. But this one stayed. One of the men outside made a small movement with his foot, testing the ground. The animal noticed immediately. It raised its head slightly, focused on that movement, then went still again. Nothing escaped it. That made one thing clear. This wasn't something acting on instinct alone. It was assessing, and that made everything more unpredictable. One of the trapped men tried to speak, "Drive it away!" But the words faded halfway, because no one knew how to do that without making things worse. If they moved forward, they could provoke it. If they attacked, they could miss. And here, there was no room to miss. The group hesitated. Part of them wanted to scare it off. Part of them wanted to stay still, but no one acted. The risk was too high. Then the animal took a step, slow, controlled, not toward the trapped men, but sideways. It began to move around them, no rush, placing each paw carefully, testing the ground before putting full weight down. That changed everything. Now it wasn't just presence, it was movement. And it didn't seem random, it didn't step into the tar. Didn't get too close, but didn't walk away either, it just circled. Like it was mapping the limits of that ground. One of the men outside noticed it first. The way it stepped, where it placed its paws, how it avoided certain spots. That wasn't luck, it knew where it could walk. The others started to see it too. No one said anything, they just watched. The animal kept moving, slow circles, always keeping a safe distance, always choosing its path. No mistakes, no sinking. Something shifted quietly in the minds of the group. The problem was still there. The 3 men were still trapped. Time was still running, but now there was something new. Information. Something they didn't have before. The ground wasn't impossible. It just had to be understood. The fear was still there. But it wasn't just about the tar anymore, or just about the animal. It was about realizing that maybe the way out had been there the whole time, and no one had seen it yet. After a while just watching, it became clear that this wasn't random. The animal wasn't walking without direction. It followed a pattern, always stepping on certain spots, avoiding others, and never sinking. The group started tracking every step. No talking, just watching. One of the men outside crouched slightly, trying to see the ground better. He noticed that where the animal stepped, the surface looked a little different. Drier, firmer, not by much, but enough to hold. He looked at the others, pointed with the spear, tracing in the air the path the animal had taken. Now it started to make sense. The problem wasn't the whole ground. It was parts of it, and there were paths, narrow, but safe. The mistake had been walking in without seeing that. One of the men tested the first spot, slowly. He touched the ground with the tip of his foot, waited. It held. He shifted a little more weight, still firm. Then he stepped fully. It worked. He stopped, looked back at the others. Now it wasn't just an idea. You could walk there, but it had to be exact. No deviation, no rushing, no mistakes. He took another step, following exactly where the animal had gone. The group stayed alert. Every movement mattered. Every step had to be right. He moved forward again, always pausing before the next step, testing, confirming. Only then continuing. The path wasn't straight. It curved slightly, avoided darker patches, passed through points almost invisible. But it was there. And now someone was on it, getting closer to the trapped men. The 3 watched with full attention, not moving, not speaking. They knew this might be the only chance. The man moving forward reached a point close enough to use the spear. He stopped, planted his feet firmly, took a breath and extended it, Now, slow. One of the trapped men raised his arm. With difficulty. No rush, trying not to move the rest of his body, he grabbed the end, held tight. The man outside adjusted his stance, secured his footing, and began to pull, different from before. No sudden force. No hurry. Pull, pause, pull, pause. The trapped man did the same. Didn't try to break free all at once. Just lifted himself little by little. The tar resisted, like always. But now there was a difference. The support point was solid. It didn't sink. Didn't give. That changed everything. The movement started to work. Slow, hard. But working. The body rose a little, then more. Still stuck, but not as deep. The group saw it, and the tension shifted. Now it wasn't just fear, it was expectation. The animal was still there. Farther now, but present, still walking. Not looking directly at them. Not interfering, like none of this concerned it. But every step it had taken had created that chance. The man kept pulling, steady, no breaks, no mistakes. The trapped man started gaining more freedom of movement. Still heavy, still sticking, but different now. The improvised line between arm and spear held firm, the path held too. Now it was just about maintaining, no mistakes. No rushing, no deviation, because one wrong move could undo everything. But for the first time since it began, it didn't feel impossible. It felt hard, but possible, and that was enough to keep going. The first movement worked, but no one celebrated. Not yet. One of the men had risen a little, but he was still stuck. The tar still held tight. The difference now was that there was a way to pull without making things worse. The man outside held his position, feet firm, body leaning back, using his weight carefully, no sudden pulling. He pulled, paused, waited for the tar to give a little, then pulled again. The trapped man understood quickly. He stopped trying to force his way out, started matching the rhythm, lift a little, pause, let the tar loosen, then continue. It worked better, slower, but more effective. The rest of the group began to move too, not toward the tar, but around it, trying to understand the path. One of them grabbed another spear and started marking the firm spots, pointing to the ground where the animal had stepped. Now the path wasn't just memory, it was a guide. Another man positioned himself behind the one pulling. He didn't step into the tar, just helped stabilize, held his shoulder, distributed the weight. And that made a difference. The pull became steadier, safer. The trapped man rose a little more. His leg began to loosen. Slowly. The sound was faint, like resistance giving way. His body tilted. He almost lost balance, but stopped. Breathed, and continued. Now half his leg was free. The tar still held the other. But the worst had passed. The group saw it. And the tension shifted again. Now there was progress. Small, but real. The man outside pulled once more. The trapped man pushed with him. And finally, the leg came free. He fell forward almost off the safe path, but was caught. Pulled back. Out of danger. He stayed on the ground for a few seconds, covered in tar, breathing hard, but out. Alive. No one said anything. They just looked, because it wasn't over. Two still remained. And one of them was worse. Deeper, heavier, harder to pull. The group didn't waste time. Now that they knew the path, they had to repeat it, but with even more care. The man who got out was dragged farther away, to a fully safe spot. Another took his place, following the exact same steps. No improvising, no changes, no guessing. Just repeating what worked, step by step. The animal kept moving around, farther now, but still visible. Still walking, no pause, no direct attention, but always within the same pattern, like the movement was natural, like it had nothing to do with them, but it did. And they all knew it. The second trapped man raised his arm, harder this time. His body was deeper, more stuck, but he reached, grabbed the spear, and the process began. Slower, heavier. The tar resisted more. Each pull demanded more effort, but now there was method. This wasn't guesswork anymore, it was execution. Pull, pause, wait, repeat. The body began to rise, barely, almost nothing, but it moved. The group stayed focused. No one looked away, no one spoke. They just followed every motion. The sun was lower now, the light beginning to change. Time was still a problem, but not the main one anymore. Now they had something stronger, a path, a method, a real chance. The second man started freeing one leg, slower than the first, but happening. The sound of the tar giving way returned, thicker, heavier, but yielding. The group adjusted positions, more hands helping from outside, no one stepping into danger, just stabilizing, holding balance. The man rose a little more, one leg came free, then the other started to loosen, harder, but moving. And then it released. He was pulled out quickly, no chance to slip, dropped beside the first. Both lay there, breathing, silent. Now only one remained. The worst case, the one who had fallen, the one most trapped. The group looked at him. They knew it would be different, But they also knew it could be done. There was no more doubt. Only repetition, with more care, more time, and no mistakes. The path was there, the method too, and now all that was left was to finish what they started. Now there was only one left, and he was the hardest. He was still stuck on his side, part of his body glued into the tar, one arm without support, his weight uneven, and the exhaustion already setting in. They couldn't repeat the same method exactly, they had to adjust. The man on the safe path moved forward again, step by step, no deviation, no rush. He stopped at a safe distance and extended the spear. Slow, adjust your arm. The trapped man tried. It took longer. His body didn't cooperate, but he managed. He grabbed it. Now came the hardest part, pulling without making him twist, without making him sink deeper. The group positioned themselves better this time. 2 supporting from behind, 1 controlling direction, another watching the ground, making sure no one stepped wrong. The movement began, slower than before, much slower. Pull, pause, wait. The tar resisted hard, but it gave. A little, but it gave. The body started to turn, first the torso, then part of the leg. The arm that had been stuck came free with a dull, heavy sound. He took a deep breath. Now he had more control, more chance. But he still wasn't free. The group kept the rhythm. No speeding up, no trying to rush it, because now they understood. Force didn't solve it, precision did. The man pulled again. The trapped one followed. The body rose more. One leg began to loosen. It took time, but it moved. Then the other, heavier, harder, but coming, until finally it released. He was pulled out fast, onto solid ground. He stayed there for a few seconds, not moving, just breathing. All 3 were out, covered, exhausted, but alive. The group stood in silence. No loud celebration. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was relief. They looked at the ground, at the tar, and then at the animal. It was still there, farther now, standing still, watching, not coming closer, not doing anything, like none of this had anything to do with it. And then it turned and walked away. No rush, no glance back, disappearing the same way it arrived. The group watched. No one spoke, because everyone understood the same thing at the same time. They hadn't gotten out by strength, or by luck. If they had kept trying the wrong way, they would have sunk deeper, maybe never gotten out. What saved them was stopping, watching and understanding. The path had always been there, but no one had seen it until something showed them. And sometimes, it's not the one who helps directly that saves you. It's the one who makes you see what you couldn't see before.